Imagine yourself as a Japanese gamer in 1987. You happen to be just watching TV and this comes on.
その時、確かに誰かが私を呼ぶ声を聞いたのです。私は優子。普通の女子高生だった私は突然この無限界に呼び込まれたのでした。私を無限界に呼んだバリスの剣。その剣を頼りに私は何も知らない世界をさまよう。何これ。すべての次元のエネルギーとなるバリスの力。その力を使って長い間無限界を守ってきた幻想王女バリア。そしてその王女を捕らえバリスの力を手に入れようとする無限魔王ログレス。全次元崩壊の危機。それを救うには魔王ログレスを倒すしかない。バリスの戦士に選ばれた私はログレスの城を目指して旅立ちました。行く手を阻むログレスの魔物たち。そして
ここで終わりよ、ユーコ。
レイポン、どうしてここに？
あなたと同じよ。もっとも私の方が少し早かったみたいね。
じゃあレイコも？
ええ、でも今は違うわ。
なぜ？クラスメイトじゃない。
ログレスは私の全て。私を倒さなければログレスは倒せない。
ログレス。
Holy crap, this looks so freaking awesome! This 3-minute ad was produced by the anime studio Madhouse specifically for the Famicom Valis game. Well, I need to get me a Famicom Valis. Hold on. Back. Well, I got me some Famicom Valis. It's time to sit down and play this thing. You fire it up and, well, this is Valis on the Famicom. A bit disappointing compared to the ads, no? After you get past the initial disappointment, you take a step back and realize that this is actually fairly average by Famicom standards, especially prior to the RAM expansion in the NES and Famicom carts. Now you give it an honest chance, and get frustrated immediately by the relentless difficulty and maze-like layout. After dying 10 times and not making any progress, you say the game sucks, power off the console, and never touch it again. This is the single most common reaction to this game. You just have to learn how to play this particular game though. First of all, there are really only 4 types of basic enemies, so once you learn how to deal with them, you're set for the rest of the game. Your basic sword is a pea shooter, but you can get upgrades if you make it through the intro stage. Yuko can still jump obscenely high, but on the Famicom it's a little less absurd. You can also enter buildings. In fact, it's mandatory if you want to progress in the game. Inside you'll find a number of helpful items, including the extremely helpful map, a boomerang power-up, which makes your shots return to you and is mostly useless except for occasional boss battles, a grenade, which is vital to finish the first boss, and health restoring power-ups. Also, all key items and upgrades are found in the buildings as well. Okay, so if you want to see any more of this game, you're gonna have to clear this city. How do you do that? Well, you have to locate and kill the mid-bosses and the stage boss. The mid-bosses are both found in the same area as each other and are pretty pathetic as soon as you learn the trick to kill them. The boss, on the other hand, is nearly impossible unless you blitzkrieg him with grenades. After you explode him to death, you find a fountain and get a short story sequence. The basic story is the same as the Genesis version. Dark Lord Rogless is fucking up the dream world of Vercanti, and Yuko has to go stab her sword through his throat while collecting the shards of the Phantasm Jewel. Here's where the real game begins. At its core, it's pretty similar to Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. And get ready for me to compare this series to Castlevania all the fucking time. You have to gather items and power-ups to reach certain areas of the world, and there's a decent amount of backtracking. Unfortunately for the player, the ruins happen to be the largest and most complex area in the game, so prepare to wander around completely lost for hours. Once you find a laundry list of items, you finally head for the boss, who's actually pretty rough. It's going to take a few tries to take him down. After making it through, you get to the jungle, and inevitably die at some point. This is when the game really dicks you over, because no matter where you die, you always start back in the ruins. No mercy. To make matters worse, there's no password or game save feature. As soon as the power goes off, your hours of hard work are gone. And this isn't a short game. It took me 6 hours to clear it the first time. Even worse, there aren't any cheat codes of worth. Just a sound test code. So there's no way around it. You have to finish this huge game all in one go. That's just plain ludicrous. Also, the paths you can take in the jungle are really hard to spot, so finding the map can be a nightmare. Still, after a lot of exploration and a tough-as-nails boss fight, you'll open up the way to the ice field and you have to go through a sadistic section of platforming. If you fall, you die. You die, and you have to go all the way back to the ruins. So be prepared to waste a huge amount of your life on this section. The ice field itself is pretty big and pretty annoying, and getting through it can be an ordeal. To make matters worse, you have not one but 2 boss fights in a row to contend with. Although they aren't terribly difficult, all things considered. The second boss is Reiko, and in this version, she follows Rogless because she's madly in love with him or something. Yuko kills her, well, if you don't suck, and you learn the location of the Valis sword. Weird, I thought you already had the Valis sword. Anyway, you head underground, die a lot, trade a grenade for a bubble, and if you don't have bombs, you have to go back to the previous map to get them, and eventually fight a pretty easy boss to get the aforementioned sword. Too bad you can't equip it. By the way, this area sports an 8-bit rendition of the hentai music. By now, you should notice a weird quirk in your equipment. The fact that you now have 4 pairs of shoes on. Ah, Famicom games. Fuck your physics. I want to wear 4 pairs of magical shoes at once. Back to the game, in order to equip the Valis sword, you have to go back to the jungle, standing at a very specific spot, then you can equip the sword. That Valis sword is pretty badass, and you won't have to worry about basic enemies again. Guess where you have to go next? A secluded part of the ruins. Hooray for backtracking! Once you make it to Rogless' stronghold, things are initially pretty straightforward. Even inside the meat of the fortress, it's not too complicated, aside from having 3 floors. However, the enemies are no longer pushovers, every one of them being a boss or a mid-boss from a previous stage. They're easy to avoid most of the time, so you don't have to worry about actually standing and fighting with them. After getting to the top to get Rogless' chamber unlocked, going back to the bottom and then climbing back up again, it's finally time to fight Rogless. He looks pretty badass, I gotta admit. After a tough fight, it's finally time to free Valia. So you finally reach the top, and the bitch attacks you! God damn, I'm freaking killing evil overlord to save your fucking world, and this is the thanks I get? What a bitch! So after stabbing her with my holy sword a few times, she leaves. Head over to the next screen and you'll be at the fountain you first saw when you got here. Interestingly, you have a choice of what ending you get, as Valia asks Yuko if she'll be the controller of Mancanti, which would mean that she would never leave, but the world would be saved. If she accepts, game over, credits roll. If she refuses, the bitch attacks you again. After carving her up in an embarrassingly easy battle, you kill her, and it looks like the world is doomed until Valia's spirit fixes everything somehow. Yuko returns home, and the credits roll. So that's Famicom Valis, and many consider it to be the worst in the series. Is that true, however? Well, it's certain that a lot of the ideas that were put into it didn't hang out very well, but it was ambitious to say the least. And in all honesty, I feel it's a little underrated, especially given the series and the Famicom. There were very few games at the time on the Famicom that were this ambitious. So, maybe you should give it a try if you have a penchant for exploration. Anyway, next time we're going to be looking at the roots of the Valis series on the good old MSX and PC 98.